Tyger, Tyger, burning bright in the forests of the night, what immortal hand or eye could frame thy fearful symmetry? Tyger, Tyger by Elizabeth Stanley. In the ancient country of Siam, a very old monk wandered into the jungle late one night to prepare himself for the next world. He lay down under a tangled tree, cradled in its roots, and slept. When the morning sunlight filtered through the jungle's dense canopy, a newborn tiger could be seen, curled beneath the tree. It was wrapped in the old monk's saffron robe. For many hundreds of years, tigers ruled over a sublime kingdom. Their strength and power were respected by all the animals that lived there. The tigers were the gods of the jungle. At the edge of the jungle stood an ancient temple and a monastery that was home to a community of monks. The monks shared a special bond with the tigers. They lived beside each other peacefully and without fear. But something began to threaten the harmony of the jungle. Sometimes an explosion would resound through the tangle of trees and undergrowth. There were fearful shrieks and cries from the animals. Afterwards, one of the great tigers would lie silenced and still. Not even a jungle god could escape the finality of a poacher's gun. Many tigers perished in this way, week after week, year after year. Deeply saddened, the monks watched from the temple walls. The poachers came from elsewhere in the kingdom, hunting the tigers for blood money. They knew nothing of the spiritual power these jungle gods bestowed on those who cherished them. The carnage continued despite the monks' prayers. One evening, a young monk was praying on the steps of the temple. A voice spoke to him in a language both strange and familiar. He felt the words in his heart and understood them. "Listen carefully, my friend. Our kingdom is in danger. Tonight you must enter the jungle alone, at the gates of the temple. Do not be afraid. Nearby you will find 2 tiger cubs. Take them into the temple and protect them." At nightfall, the monk slipped through the temple gates. A little way into the jungle, he heard a stirring and held a light into the darkness. As foretold, 2 tiny cubs scrambled out from their hiding place and climbed into his arms. He wrapped them securely in his robe and carried them to the safety of the temple. Next morning, the young monk took the cubs into the temple courtyard, where other monks were gathered. He spoke excitedly of the mission they had been given. The temple would become a sanctuary, for the tigers and the monks would be their custodians. Their prayers had been answered. By the following year, the cubs had grown into beautiful young tigers. They lived inside the temple and were fed, bathed, and watched over by their devoted keepers. But outside the temple, the shooting continued, and many tigers were slain. One day, an old tigress came to the temple and begged for refuge. Then several cubs were left mysteriously at the edge of the jungle, and they were also made welcome by the monks. Soon there were as many tigers as there were monks in the temple. The monks prayed daily for guidance. Their temple could not embrace all the tigers in the jungle. Their love alone could not protect them, and the tigers began to yearn for their emerald paradise. One night, the young monk dreamed that the temple and surrounding jungle were encircled by deep water. Outside the circle lay danger and evil and darkness, but the world inside was safe and peaceful, bathed in light. The monk heard the same voice in his dream. "Friend, you must make a great island of your temple, surrounded by a moat so deep and so wide that it will save us from extinction." How formidable this mission seemed, even to the good monks. The jungle was wild and impenetrable. The moat must be deep, impassable. The monks' tools were primitive, and many of them were old and weak. Only a miracle could create such a sanctuary. Nevertheless, the monks began to dig. They were astonished to find what quick progress they made, how easily the trees parted and the soil turned. The spirit of the jungle gods was with the monks, empowering them as they toiled. By the end of the year, the moat was dug, and the monks and the tigers waited. Finally, the monsoon broke. Rain filled the moat, making a shining circle around the temple and its jungle garden. "The miracle was within us," cried the young monk. And the spirit of the jungle gods answered, "Yes, it is within us all."